Stephen, your first game as under-20s manager and a really impressive and really encouraging 4-2 victory up at Ross County. You must be pleased with what went on there.
Well, it's always nice for the players' point of view that they've worked hard all pre-season. Some of the senior players coming down, Lionel Ainsworth, Kieran Kennedy, Dominic Thomas, who's been around about the first team. I think the fact they've come down and got some game time is important. But for the younger players as well, to see the attitude and the application of senior players please me more. I said to Lionel when he came off after 70 minutes that I feel as if he inspired the younger players around about him, that they kind of grasped that his attitude was right, his performance was right, and it kind of filtered through the team. So I think that's credit to them. But for the young players as well, as I say, they've been slogging through pre-season, they're having pre-season games. Today was about the real thing starting for them. For some of them it's the start of their career. The fact that from now on they're professional football players. They have to train like professional players, playing professional games as they've done, and eat and live like professional players. So from when you put it all together, everything was pleasing. Of course, the aspect of playing the game and winning the game, we probably could have won by a few more goals. That's not been disrespectful, but I think some of our play was good. There's still lots of stuff to work on, which is always nice as well. You always think it's nice to take things out of the game positively, but also on the negative side, there's little things we can work on. But overall, if you'd said to me when I took the job, we'd win our first game 4-2 away from home, I think we'd have taken that.
It's an interesting point you make about senior pros coming down. As under-20s manager, how important is it that when a senior player does drop down and that they do set the agenda, that they are there to inspire, that they are there to encourage everybody else and not actually drag people down, which obviously doesn't happen here, thankfully, but it can happen given the nature of the league?
Well, it's the nature of football sometimes. I think the manager travelled up on the bus today, which was encouraging. That shows the younger players as well as the senior players that he has an interest in their performance. And he said before the game, which I'd kind of mentioned as well, that every player has something to play for today. You're either playing to get into the first team, playing to maintain your place in the under-20 squad, or you're an under-17 player trying to make it in the under-20s. So he said, leave the game having got something out of it. And I think every player who took part today can think, that they got something out of the game, which is encouraging. It's about setting standards and trying to maintain standards when you're a young kid. It's about playing against the opposition. And it's been difficult because I've only really had to judge them against themselves in training over the past 3 or 4 weeks. Yes, we went to Northern Ireland for the Foyle Cup. Opposition wasn't great, so it's kind of difficult to judge them. So it was interesting to see them against other players in the country, similar kind of age to them. So it was nice to see that they're above standard. There's plenty of improvement still to be done, but a lot of the stuff we've tried to work on in training and stuff we've tried to give to them information, patterns of play, their position and like receiving the ball and things like that. You can see that all trying to happen. But when senior players come in and do it, and set the tone and work hard and close people down and score goals like Lionel done, the young players think, well, if they're going to do it, I'm going to do it. Sometimes senior players can come down and not have the wrong attitude, but it's not my fault they come down and play for the under-20s. They have to go and look after themselves. As I say, Lionel hasn't played, for example, because he's been suspended. Kieran has been had a little bit of an injury. He hasn't really had a chance to play first team. And Dominic Thomas comes in and when he does, he's just a joy. He's a lovely lad. He enjoys himself. He entertains in the pitch, but he also has a right attitude.
This is the first time you've really had a chance, or the viewers who watch this channel have a chance to really speak to you about the under-20s, but today's the first day you've won it. Every under-20s manager I've ever spoke to says it's not about results and winning is about performance and development. What are your hopes and aspirations from both this position and largely this season in terms of the under-20s team?
Well, I want to try and get as many of the young players into the first team panel, into the first team pool. I'd said before I took the job, I spoke to the manager that I want to analyse their position in the pitch. I want to do it in relation to the first team, how they're trying to play. So if a manager ever comes to me and says, I need a right back, I need a left back, he has the full trust that when he puts him into his training pattern or he puts him into a match day squad, that he trusts, he understands the role. And I think it's important that the under-20s and the first team are on the same wavelength. They're trying to give the same message out. So it means then if Stephen Robinson takes him or if the manager takes him, he doesn't have to coach them. Well, he still has to coach them, but he doesn't have to coach so specifically for them. They understand the role. I think that's the important role of an under-20 coach, is to work with the first team manager. The players understand the role. They understand the standards that have been set, whether it's in training or whether it's in games. So it's not about winning. Well, I think it is about winning too. I think it's important for them to learn. We've had this culture in Scotland and probably in the UK that underage football isn't about winning, it's about taking part and progression. It is about progression, but I think winning gives you that little habit, that little taste if you want more of it. Because certainly when you're playing in the first team and you're winning, you're probably earning a little bit of extra money. So, under-20s aren't. But their aim and their drive has to be to get into the first team to want to win every single week. But by doing things right in the under-20s, understanding the game, being professional off the pitch as well, all that going together and arriving in the first team will prepare them for winning and prepare them for Motherwell being successful. So I think that's the role of an under-20 manager.
I suppose as well, winning and good opportunities like that are habit forming, and you know, when you're dealing with players who are maybe 16, 17 years old, it's about developing that habit, and winning is a part of that.
Well, it's about good habits. Yes, winning's part of that, but good habits with regards to receiving the ball, positional sense, defensively understanding your role, and an attacking sense when you have the ball, when you don't have the ball, that all becomes habit. And if that all becomes habit, then you'll probably more often than not win games. That then becomes a habit. So it is about getting good habits. You know, there's plenty of players I've played with, and myself included, who probably had bad habits and you couldn't get rid of it. But I think when you're working with 16, 17, 18-year-old players, you can probably get rid of their bad habits and try and encourage them to have more good habits. Because I think, you know, the more good habits they have, the more good aspects they have to the game, the more the first team manager will come and look at them and want to enhance them and want to, you know, fast track them into his squad. So it is about habits. It's about learning for them as well. You know, we'll do some video analysis, which I think is important for them. They can see themselves. Players love seeing themselves on TV, love seeing themselves in clips and doing good things. So, you know, the more information we can stock them with, and it's probably been information overload over the last 2 or 3 weeks for them, but I think they need it. You know, I think moving forward long term will certainly benefit them, and hopefully they'll become a first team player, you know, here at this club.
And relating all that to today's game, have you managed to see some of the aspects of things that you have been working on actually transpire onto the pitch at Dingwall today?
Well, I have actually, yeah, and it's you know, it's interesting because I speak to the players coming back on the bus and I ask them about certain situations and they laugh, and it's as if you told us that 2 weeks ago and it's actually happened in a game. So yeah, so you can actually coach as much as you want in training, but until they play a competitive game and they see it happen and they see it happen again, they start to trust in you and believe in you, what you're telling them. So it is interesting. You know, young Alan Campbell, for example, Alan's only a young kid. I think he's just turned 17 or 17 and a half, but to come in and play against older players today, you know, and play with Lionel, who's a first team player, Dom, who's a first team player, Kieran Kennedy, who, you know, has aspirations to be a first team player, and actually stand out and play well. And I'd worked with him last week in certain parts of his game about receiving the ball and playing certain passes, and he'd done it time and time again. So when you see that coming, it's rewarding for me, but more importantly, it's rewarding for him as well because he's taking the information on board. I think it's frustrating sometimes when you give people information, they don't take it on board or they forget, but you know, we'll go back and we'll keep doing it and doing it, but the quicker the players can take it on board, then the better for them. And
obviously it was your first game as well as under-20s manager. How did you enjoy it on the touch? And I know you've done a lot for Northern Ireland and the youth things, but obviously it was a first time out for you. An enjoyable experience?
It was, yeah. I had the manager alongside me. I told him on the team sheet I was down as manager and he was down as assistant today, so that went down quite well. But no, it was good. You know, it's I've trusted the players to go and do, you know, what we spoke about. You know, we tried to give them information. Some of the younger players were away last week for the Milk Cup in Northern Ireland. We didn't really get a lot of time with them. We've done some shaping up yesterday and tried to give some information. You know, yesterday during training in 11v11 kind of situation. So, you know, they took it on board. It was pleasing for me to see them doing that. You know, I think there will be stronger opposition in the league. Nothing against Ross County, but I think there'll be more experienced squads to come up against. So, you know, that'll be a challenge for us. But we've got a base to work from. I enjoyed it. You know, winning is always nice. You know, I think my career here at Motherwell as a player, I started my first game I lost and my last game I lost. So it's nice to think it's my first game as a manager I've won. Of course, it's not about me, but it is a little bit rewarding as well that the players are taking the information on board. And we're getting a little bit of success. You know, we're going to enjoy ourselves and hopefully they'll learn as well.
Stephen, well done.
Pleasure. Thank you.